Go.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Topical Talkology with Andy and Theo. So you good?
Good morning, much better, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. I've been really busy actually, so work's piling up, which I can't complain about. So all things are starting to go well.
We're sitting here on a beautiful sunny morning, despite the fact that everyone's saying there's beast from the east coming in.
Oh, is that? Well, get over it. Let's deal with it. I mean, other countries have to deal with it, so let's just tough it out really. So today we're going to talk about, there's been a lot of political activity, and we do tend to lean in that direction. But this particular week has been very much revolved, or particularly I've been paying attention to it, around the whole Venezuela situation. As you know, Venezuela is dealing with hyperinflation, it's dealing with people not getting any of the amenities that they actually need to get hold of. The average Venezuelan's lost about between 20 and 30 pounds in weight because they just can't get hold of the things, and they're leaving in their hundreds of thousands, actually millions. I think they've lost about nearly over 7% of the population, and Maduro, on the other hand, just seems to be adding to his waistline. So there's a little bit of inconsistency or incongruency there in terms of how he views, his point of view of the world and everyone else's. But this week, it's been a guy called Guaido, I think it is, who was one of the opposition leaders, and I think he's leader of Congress over there or something, and he's declared himself the interim president. I mean, you can just go like that, declare myself the interim president, which is great in some ways.
With what authority?
Well, he's head of Congress. And the thing is, I'm sure there's some legal things in. I don't know Venezuelan law, I'm afraid. But he's done that. But even so, there's been about 20 countries around the world, around the United Nations and that, who are supporting him, like Brazil and Colombia, no doubt, because they don't want all the Venezuelans are actually arriving on their doorstep. The UK this week has actually backed him as well. The US as well, and one of the things that has happened there is that because they've actually acknowledged this other guy, Maduro has attempted to throw out all their diplomats within a short period of time, and then he had to back down and extend it. But the thing is, I think it's the diplomat, the highest ranking Army general, I think it's probably general, actually, I don't know, has actually sort of already jumped ship and actually backed this Guaido guy. So there's going to be a lot happening in the news, I think, in the next couple of weeks, because they've given this Nicolas Maduro an ultimatum, which is ultimately, if you don't call a general election in 8 days, we're going to declare him as president. And the reason why is because there was an election earlier this month. Half the opposition, or most of the opposition leaders, seem to be imprisoned. And there was, and the thing is, there was a lot of controversy around the legitimacy of how the votes were cast and how they were read and everything. So there's a lot of corruption going on over there, no doubt. Hence the reason why it's such a poor country. Yeah, it's got the biggest oil reserves in the world. The Arab nations don't seem to have any problem yet. The reason why the military have probably backed Nicolas Maduro until now is because ultimately they've actually just funneled about 60 billion from the country in the last few years. So they've got a big decision to make. Anyway.
Is this the world significance of Venezuela because of its oil reserves, and that's causing a split in the superpowers?
There is superpowers. So you got people like China, Russia, Turkey, who are all backing Maduro. Even Greece, which I'm surprised about. Although saying that, they've got a left-wing government in there as well, so I suppose they're leaning towards socialism. But then again, after going through bankruptcy the way they have, it's probably no surprise that
They haven't been bankrupt, that's the difficulty.
Who?
They haven't officially been bankrupt, Greece. If they had, they'd be in a much better place.
Haven't they officially been bankrupt?
No, otherwise they'd have been able to kiss goodbye to their debts.
Really? No.
They had been bankrupt but not now.
They were bankrupt about 8 years ago.
Because bankruptcy means you're freed of your debt obligations and your assets are split.
Not necessarily, because the thing is, the EU actually loaned Greece X amount of money twice to bail them out.
Which means they haven't negotiated a fixed term agreement.
because they were. I thought because they were bankrupt. Okay. Anyway, but
Well, theoretically,
so what? So,
if
if that's the case, why not go bankrupt? If it's such a better deal, why not go bankrupt? What are the pros and cons to bankruptcy?
because then they wouldn't be able to afford any imports or bring in any medications. It'll be. They have thought about it very seriously, but they in many ways it would relieve them of a lot of the straitjacket produced by the EU. But the difficulty is they will not be able to afford the medicines and technology and things like that
If they went bankrupt.
if they went bankrupt.
Okay. So they decided to tough it out and ride it. Because, I mean, Iceland went bankrupt, didn't they?
I'm not sure.
I think Iceland went bankrupt not so long ago, probably in the last 5 or 6 years, I think it was. Which again, this is, we're talking about places like Iceland and Sweden and places, aren't they supposed to be the Northern Europe utopia that the world sets an example in terms of how left-wing policies tend to work, even though it's not working over there.
But I think Iceland didn't have how should we put it, a abusive big brother controlling it like Europe has been controlling Greece.
And I think that's one of the major problems, isn't it? So,
And also, the people need to understand also what's going on with Greece and Ireland, with Europe and Ireland, because of course, weirdly enough, is it the Prime Minister in Southern Ireland has been saying that he will not accept, he will turn down anything that doesn't involve a hard border. So he could scupper any agreement, because apparently all the EU Prime Ministers have to agree to a Brexit plan, and if one of them disagrees, he can scupper it. And what he's doing is he's effectively saying he will not agree to any Brexit plan that doesn't include a hard border, because ultimately what he wants to do is to be able to force a vote of independence of the whole of Ireland.
is that what the plan is?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, not everyone in Ireland actually wants to be independent, and the thing is, they don't have to go too far if they actually want to be Irish. They can, or separate from Great Britain. All they have to do is just cross over into the Republic of Ireland, because there's plenty of Irish people who actually want to remain British.
Well, that's right. But of course, the difference.
All right, and that was the whole point of this whole. When they actually gave part of Ireland their independence. It's amazing. You give people a little bit and they actually want more and more and more. It's like Scotland.
Well, what people don't understand is that a lot of because you've got the favourable tax rates in Ireland, you have a huge number of businesses with their headquarters in Ireland, and this includes European banks. And this is one of the reasons that Europe has this particular control over Ireland.
Yeah, but the thing is, those tax loopholes could go in a heartbeat, and I think they actually are going from Ireland. It's not as an attraction. I think had a lot to do with corporate tax and things like that over there. But they're quickly eradicating some of those loopholes that have made it so easy for people to do. So, and that could change. All you have to do actually is one vote, and that goes overnight. And all of a sudden, you've got Apple with a huge infrastructure over there. But you remember organisations like Amazon, who I think were running out of Seattle. And when Seattle decided to increase the taxes and everything to such a degree, there was a lot of talk about them moving to another state, which was a little bit more flexible with their tax arrangements, because they became too stringent literally overnight, which meant, if you think about the amount of people who are actually employed in somewhere like Amazon, we're going to be out of work. And it's actually happened in places like California, for example, where I think they've got about a 1.2 trillion debt and growing. And although a state can't be bankrupt, the boroughs can, and you've got places, I think, the Americans will know this, Stockton and Compton, something like that, are already bankrupt. Now, admittedly, they are on the border, which, interesting, if you actually identify that pattern of data, and you think about the amount of immigration, the leniency that the Democrats who are actually running that part of the world, if you look at the data, it's actually not working out so favourably for a lot of the Californians over there.
what is the psychology, by the way? Now we're talking about America. What's the psychology in President Trump backing down on the wall? What do you think? Why do you think he backed down when the wall was effectively his seminal component of his election policy?
The psychology behind that. Okay, actually, I've got an interesting theory on that one. But it starts well before he ever became president. And I think I've probably covered this somewhere before. I think Trump has always looked to create a dynasty. And I don't think actually he was the start of the dynasty. I think his grandfather was the start of the dynasty. It's like the saying, the thing is, people underestimate what you can do and overestimate what you can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what you can do in 5. But the thing is, if you only have a 1-year strategy, you only achieve what you're going to do. It's very different to a 10-year strategy. It's like when people went to the Gulf War. When we went into the Gulf War, for example, and now that we've gone into Iraq, they've always been focusing on a very short-term strategy as a solution to come out. Whereas probably if they'd focused on probably a 5 or a 10-year strategy, there would have been different measures in place, and chances are there would have been a far better resolution than there is now. But you're playing constantly short-term. So, in terms of Donald Trump's grandfather, who came over from Germany and things like this, I sincerely believe that he looked to actually create the Trump dynasty from that point. Or maybe he had a bigger vision and he sold it to his son, who was Donald Trump's father, and then Trump's taken it over and he's done that. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at some of the patterns of behaviour that Donald Trump has exhibited over the years, for example, he married Ivana Trump, who was an Olympic athlete, who was also a highly attractive model, because the thing is, for him, it was all about the gene pool. You see, I don't think he's ever, everyone he's ever loved has always been for looks. It's always been quite superficial in that respect. But it was actually creating a strong gene pool, which is why Ivanka, who's come out to be the golden princess for a lot of people, seems to be very much in his attentions. Whereas other daughter, who was Marla Maples' daughter, I can't remember what her name was. She lives in California. All right. He doesn't really give her he gives her a bit of lip service, but he doesn't really give her the same time of day. So, in that respect, with Trump's dynasty, if you think of his decision-making process, building the wall was more about his legacy than it is right for the country. Now, I think you have to believe that. I do believe that a wall needs to be in place. It's like leaving your front door open, expecting anybody to come in and then not leaving. It's just a ridiculous notion. And saying that. And I'm monopolising this conversation, so I apologise. But saying that, you had the Obama administration, who actually in 2013 actually were putting forward that they should actually have far stronger border control. But because Trump is in office, all they're doing is just counteracting everything he's doing, because they do not want him to succeed. Which, as a politician, it shows a really poor character of an individual that you're doing to actually get political advantage over your opponent as to what's right for the country.
It's what we all say, that almost all behaviour is self-serving. It's nothing to do with
That's right. And I don't think Donald Trump is any different. I think in some ways he is there to build a wall. He's a builder. At the end of the day, he's a builder. It's a massive construction. If you think about the Berlin Wall, or you think about the wall in Israel, what's the wall in Israel called? I can't remember. Yeah, you think about you look at some of the biggest infrastructures in the world and how memorable they are. And all of a sudden, Trump got to, just imagine for a second, Trump gets to build his big 30-foot, probably much bigger wall, a lot of technology on it, solid brick or solid concrete or whatever it is. That's there to stay for a long, long time. That guarantees his family's name and legacy for generations and generations and generations to come. All right? And the thing is, guess what? I'm not sure that even through the back door he'll make a huge profit out of that, being a building company, even though he's no longer involved in the property, in the building industry. All right? But even so, He's got a lot of friends who are in that trade, and so there'll be, it helps all his connections. So, yeah, but that would be remembered as the Trump wall because there's been so much controversy around it. Why has he backed down? Because he'll never